one thing we need to talk about is this Lincoln Riley stuff with Josh Pate, and I would love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments section. So, Josh Pate was on the Bussin With the Boys podcast, and I did a video about this over on the JR's Big Ten Football News and Rumors because it was mostly a rumor. But basically, there's been some reports and stuff circulating around out there that Lincoln Riley might not be so safe at USC. And the thought is that he hasn't gone to the playoffs. He hasn't been maybe the type of coach that they think he's going to be. And if he misses the playoffs again this season, which as we just talked about, most likely is going to happen, but still a possibility they can make it. And I wouldn't put out the possibility of that they're going to win out too. I don't think that's a totally unlikely possibility either. But if Lincoln Riley doesn't make the playoffs, there is a possibility that he might move on and go someplace else. I believe the rumor was started by a Florida writer on one of their message boards. I think it's the On3 message board where he kind of talked about like, hey, watch out for Lincoln Riley. Like, don't let his name be something that, you just kind of dismiss or whatever for this job. And so, of course, he's talking about the Florida job. I don't think Florida's as good of a job as USC. I think USC personally to me is a better job than Florida. I know some of the talent in California might not be exactly what it has been, in the past, but it's still a lot of talent out there. And even if the talent is moving more toward Arizona and Utah, like some people are speculating, it's still talent that is out there on the West Coast. And you're one of the biggest brands to be out there to acquire that talent. Yes, you are battling Oregon for a lot of that stuff. Yes, if UCLA gets their act together, they're going to be battling you for that kind of stuff too. But basically, all the programs out West that you were kind of battling before have kind of dissipated out there, right? Cal isn't really going to be, battling with you. Stanford's not going to be battling with you. Sure, you have Oregon, Washington, UCLA to worry about, but I don't think the recruiting thing is as big of a thing as some people make it out to be. So of course, I'm not getting into the big story here, which is that Josh Pate on the Bussin With the Boys podcast, where he was on with Taylor Llewellyn and Will Compton, basically said he wanted to start something, which, this isn't unlike Josh Pate right now. He was always somebody that was kind of like, had information, but didn't want to start a whole bunch of stuff. And then ever since he's joined On3 and ESPN, he's gotten a little bit more loose with his information, I guess you could say, and definitely being on with Taylor Llewellyn, Will Compton has added to that as well, it feels like. But basically said he wanted to start something, and then he was like, here's what I'll say, and then he pulls the pin and on the grenade and like throws it up, and he says, keep your eye on Lincoln Riley, which was like, boom, big news to be on the lookout for. It's not just message board stuff anymore. So I think the big question is, why would Lincoln Riley want to leave USC? Because USC to me is one of the best jobs, top 10, top 5 jobs. I'd say fringe top 5 jobs in all of college football. I don't think he would leave for Florida, but a few reasons why he might, these are just the best few that I can come up with. So, number one, the recruiting stuff. If you do believe that there's less talent out there in California and there is more competition with like Oregon, UCLA possibly, and Washington out there as well. Okay, I don't think Washington, UCLA are really threats to USC all that much, but you could see it a little bit here and there. Oregon, definitely a threat. Like they're going after a lot of the same guys. So I could see that a little bit, but I don't think it's enough for you to leave California, leave USC altogether, and go to Florida. Like, why would you want to go to a program that is literally in need of a complete rebuild at this point? Yes, you would possibly have DJ Lagway there. And there is the thought process of like the defense, and all you need to do is come in. But in this day and age of college football, your roster is not guaranteed for you. Florida might have all these guys on good contracts and be able to keep them, sure, but as we saw with Wisconsin, like they weren't able to hold on to Xavier Lucas, so and they had a contract with him. So can you really hold on to all these guys? Maybe there's something there that we're just not aware of, and Florida's not going to lose any of their guys to the transfer portal. If that happens, okay, maybe there is something there. The other part of it is the travel stuff. Lincoln Riley is obviously not a huge fan of the amount of travel that USC is going through right now. He wasn't a fan of this Northwestern game because they were going to have to play late on Saturday and then play an early game on Friday. So he was not a fan of that as well. But I mean, this is college football now, right? You can go to the SEC and travel less, I guess, but they're still going. It's still going to be really good competition in the SEC. And just like how you're going to have a coaching, a grinded out kind of coaching matchup in the Big Ten, you're going to have a lot of talent matchups down there as well. I don't discount the fact that the SEC has a lot of talent down there. I just don't think they have the coaches to utilize the talent like the Big Ten does. I think the Big Ten has generally less talent than the SEC, but I don't think the SEC develops their talent quite as well as the Big Ten, especially for college football, in my opinion. So there's definitely the travel aspect to that, but I think that USC's administration is showing that they're backing Lincoln Riley, and I also think that the Big Ten is recognizing that the current structure of the Big Ten is not necessarily something they want to go with forever. I don't think this is something that they're showing that like we can keep doing this forever. I think that eventually you're going to get pods, you're going to get divisions at some point. Maybe that's adding a couple more teams, whatever that might be. But I don't think 10 years from now, the Big Ten's going to look exactly the same and we're all going to be playing the exact same schedule with this kind of stuff. I think that the way things are right now, it's temporary. And I also think that USC's administration is showing their backing of Lincoln Riley and his concern for travel by having some of these conversations about Notre Dame, which, if you don't know what's going on with that, essentially Notre Dame does not want to, or USC does not want to end the rivalry with Notre Dame, but they don't want to continue to play Notre Dame in like week 7, 8, 9. They want to play Notre Dame in the first few weeks of the season. They want that to be their main out of conference game, and they want to have it in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, of the season, which to me makes sense. But of course, Notre Dame doesn't want to do that because they've always relied on USC to be a team that they don't have to schedule to play in those kind of windows. But with that kind of thing that USC needs, it puts Notre Dame in a bad spot. So I do think when people say like, "Oh, it's all USC's fault and they don't want to play the game," I do think they're not seeing the entire thing. I do think USC needs to play the game, especially with the SEC going to 9 conference games now. But I don't think it's exactly preposterous that they would not want to play that game at that time. So that's kind of the sum of why Lincoln Riley might want to leave USC. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think he wants to leave USC. And the other possibility that I bring up too is if USC wants Lincoln Riley to leave, this could be a way to get him to be gone, right? They could structure something out with a Florida or an LSU to have his buyout be decreased if they would want to move on from him. I don't think they'd want to. I don't know if you're going to find all that many great coaching candidates out there right now, especially when you're battling teams like Penn State and LSU and Florida. I think you'd rather just hang on to your coach, especially if he ends this season going 8-4 at the worst, right? So I think you're definitely going to see USC want to try to hold on to Lincoln Riley, and unless LSU or Florida just comes in with some kind of like mega offer, I don't see Lincoln Riley leaving USC. It could have happened, sure. Is it likely to happen? No. And I think that Josh Pate is really, really good at not saying a lot, but still saying something. And if that's, if that's how he wants to run things, sure. It's entertaining. People love his podcast, and he does a good job. He's a very eloquent speaker and does a great job. But I just don't know if there was actually a whole lot said there other than, if Lincoln Riley goes 8-4 this season, don't be surprised if he moves on. Probably not going to go 8-4 this season. If he does, maybe he leaves, maybe he moves on, but I don't think it would be for LSU or Florida. Honestly, I think if he does move on, I think Texas Tech probably comes open. He goes back there, right? Which is not exactly the craziest thing in the world. Joey McGuire, if he doesn't make the playoffs this season, Texas Tech would not be super ecstatic with him because they put a lot of money into this roster to be able to make the playoffs. And especially when you're putting this kind of money into a roster in the Big 12 where the other rosters are not as talented, you definitely want to see him get to the playoffs and have some success there. But at the very least get to the playoffs. Maybe you don't have success in your first season, but Arkansas is looking for a coach, and Joey McGuire grew up an Arkansas fan, so maybe he goes for that job. Who knows? A lot to work out, but I would say as long as Lincoln Riley doesn't go 8-4, he's good. I don't think anybody is poaching him away. I don't think USC wants to lose him. Essentially, if USC loses Lincoln Riley, I think that's more USC's choice than it is Lincoln Riley's choice. That's my opinion. So let's see what you guys are saying. Max is saying, where could possibly be better for Riley? He has all the resources he needs and is doing decent. Would Florida, LSU, or Penn State want him? Sounds like Florida does want him, like after Lane Kiffin. Like Lane Kiffin is the guy that Florida wants the most. But if they don't get him, that sounds like Lincoln Riley might be their next guy to go after. LSU, boy, I just don't think that would be a good decision. Not necessarily because of Lincoln Riley. I just think you want to get somebody from down there after Brian Kelly and the debacle that he was. But, they went out and paid Brian Kelly a buttload of money. So who knows? Maybe they go pay a buttload of money to Lincoln Riley too. And there's always the possibility of like another big job opening up, right? Like if LSU poaches a coach from, I don't know, name your big job here or there, then maybe Lincoln Riley moves someplace else. But I just think that's so far down the line that I don't think you can even really mention Lincoln Riley's name right now. So Max says can't break through the playoff ceiling of the Big Ten, needs to downgrade and leave for an easier SEC to get to the playoffs. Hey, I like the way you think there, Max. Yeah, go to the SEC where it's way easier to get to the playoffs there, right? You got all the bias and everything for you. So, and then about the schedule, he says I like the current schedule. You play each team every other year outside of rivals. Yeah, no, I like the way the schedule's set up now. Too, I do think divisions could be interesting, but it would be really hard, right? Because you can't put Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, and like, I don't know, what other powerhouse team would you have out there? You couldn't put all three of those teams in the same division, but Ohio State and Michigan definitely have to be in the same division, which means you essentially need to put two powerhouse teams in every division. Otherwise, you're not going to have a very fair process for Ohio State and Michigan being in the same division, unless they put them in different divisions. You put Ohio State, Penn State, Maryland, and Rutgers in a division, and then Michigan State, Purdue, and Indiana. But then you have Michigan and Indiana together. Indiana looks like a powerhouse right now. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one.